So, what's up, everybody? It's Coach Ronan here with BBG, and this is my first video in a series, and I've been thinking about doing it for a long time now, but I figured now is good a time as any. So, yeah, like I said, this is the first video, so we're just getting started. You see the subtitle of this little PowerPoint here. A lot of this is subject to change. There's going to be some developments with production value and stuff like that. So hopefully it'll improve later, and it won't be so, well, frankly, terrible. But this is just to see how it goes, see if people would want some more in-depth stuff. This is going to be a pretty long video. They're all going to be pretty long, 30 minutes, 45 minutes maybe. If you have the time to watch them, it'd be awesome. If you could comment, let me know what you're thinking. Maybe hit it with a retweet, all that'd be great. So, yeah, I think it's time to take a trip inside my mind. A little slogan, I don't know. We'll see if we keep it. Who knows? But like I said, this is just getting started, so we're going to talk about the basics. And I feel like a lot of people should review the basics. A lot of people should think about why they're doing this. Because every weekend, every tournament, whether it be Valorant, Call of Duty, whatever, I see a lot of people tweeting afterwards, wow, what a waste, or I shouldn't have wasted my time doing this, or all the things I could have done better in my life. And that's true. Maybe that's true. Maybe a lot of time has been wasted. Maybe you regret your decision. But that's why we're going to talk about just getting started for all the people who are just getting started. I know BBG has a lot of Fortnite fans, a lot of people under the age of 18, a lot of people who are just getting into this, who really want this. This is their dream still. And for some people who have tried to live this dream for a while and maybe it hasn't worked out, maybe this video is for you too. Maybe it can help you reflect on why you started and why you should keep going. Or maybe why you should give up, who knows. But we'll talk about more of that later. So, like I said, just getting started, right? So deciding to compete. I feel like this is where everybody starts, right? Some people are kind of just thrust into it. Maybe one day you were just playing with your friends and one of your friends had heard of Game Battles, or they watched the Call of Duty tournament, or maybe they, heard of ESEA and they're like, hey, I want to get rank S. I want to compete. Well, what's competing? What does that mean to you? And that for a lot of people that's different. But in my opinion, deciding to compete and understanding like what that undertaking means is probably the most important part of competition. Because people have this like weird misconception that once you start is when the hard work starts. And that's kind of not true, right? And it's not true for a lot of reasons. The first reason is that if you wait to work hard, whether it be at anything, at any part of your life, but specifically with competing, if you wait until you've already started, then you're already behind. You have to work hard beforehand. In games like League of Legends, for example, some games are won before it even starts, right? Some games are won in Champion Select. Maybe in Valorant, sometimes Agent Select games are won. Map preparation, all that stuff. Before the game even starts, you're at an advantage or a disadvantage. So it's really important to understand when you're deciding to compete, when you're deciding to take this on, even if you're deciding to create content, like I am right now, it's kind of a big step for anybody. And it's really important to understand the very basics, right? And I feel like a lot of people just go with the idea that, well, when it starts, or when I have to get better, or when I have to make a decision, that's when I'll do it. And to be fair, and no offense to anybody this may offend, but that line of thinking stems a lot from laziness. It stems from the idea that like it's okay to wait. But when it comes to something you want, when it comes to this dream, this thing you're fighting for, there is no waiting. It's now or never. So, it's really important when you're deciding to compete, or even now if you're looking back at when you decided to compete, it's important to understand that this is an untested lifestyle. Yes, esports is growing. It's growing an insane amount, and it's going to be something incredible. Perhaps one day we'll see it in the Olympics. People are getting paid millions and millions of dollars. They're earning a lot. There's gamers that live in giant houses. There's gamers that play with football players, and it's an incredible thing, right? But it is an untested lifestyle, and for hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people, it will never amount to anything. And it is important to understand that, and I admit that readily. I am a coach. I understand that there are people who will fall short. I understand that I could fall short and never accomplish my goals. But in deciding to compete, you're deciding to take that risk. You are deciding to take an untested lifestyle and fight for it on a daily basis, and to not give up, and to not be a quitter. Right? Because you have to continue to get back up. Because unless you want to be one of those hundreds of thousands who don't make it, any semblance of regret, time wasted, effort not put forth will amount to nothingness, right? So you have to accept both the pros and the cons. Yes, those big houses are awesome. You know, playing Warzone with Kane Brown, awesome. Playing Warzone with D Book, it's all awesome, right? This is for Call of Duty players. That's all awesome. For CS:GO players, you go to a major, maybe Snoop Dogg's on the stage. League of Legends, you see Snoop performing, you see Luda performing. You see, Imagine Dragons is on stage. You get to meet these people, you get to speak to them. These are people's idols, and for all intents and purposes, they're equals to you, because you are now people's idols, and that's an incredible thing. But you have to get there first, and accepting the fact that you can fail is part of making that process important, and it will drive you to never stop getting better. There will always be improvement. Right? So, society may look at gaming as something that is nothing right now. Some may look at it as something that's great, but it is in its infancy. So, some things to think about. Like, there are those things to think about. And these concepts, like I said, should last not only to the people that I'm talking to right now, not only to the new people, the people under the age of 18, young kids who want to play Fortnite, the young kids who are 16 years old, Radiant players, right? Built by Gamers, the organization that I represent, just picked up an amazing Valorant player. His name's Governor. He's great at what he does, but he's young. And there's a future there. Right now he creates content. Maybe one day he wants to compete. This is important, right? To him, to people like him, to people who understand that although this sounds sappy, sounds like a movie, you hear me talk and it sounds philosophical and stupid. This isn't real life, but it is. Right? Because although it sounds really frilly, it makes you feel weird inside to have it discussed in this way. This is the level of impact that it has. There are people whose lives have been put on hold for gaming, and then they go on to regret it. There are people, I've seen people in Call of Duty on Twitter who will go and they'll spend years and years and years playing Call of Duty. They'll gain 50 pounds. They'll hate their lives. I myself used to weigh 400 pounds. I've changed my life for the better thanks to gaming. Thanks to people I've met in gaming who have made me want to live and want to get back to my life. And that's why this is important to me, because understanding the start is just as important as understanding the finish, right? So for someone like Governor, who's just starting, who's been playing games for a while, who's really good, he's good, right? These are important concepts to understand. So with that being said, one of these concepts, time, like I said, it's important. Understanding the probability of success, we've touched on that a little bit. Sacrifices, same thing. One of the big ones that we'll talk about when we get to that slide is video games and how they feel, right? Like, for younger people, video games are fun. And because they're fun, they want to make them a career. There's flip sides to that coin. What kind of person you want to become? This is a big thing, and I'll touch on this later, but the reality of the situation is that gamers are people. We like to separate ourselves from that because we live in a fake world, right? We live in a world of super soldiers and superpowers, and we play video games as a stress reliever. But the reality of the situation is that every time you get on and you play with your teammates, you have to accept the fact that you are all people. You're people first, right? You're gamers second. And in your growth from being whatever scrub, noob, horrible player you are right now, and that goes for some professionals as well, to being the best version of yourself that you can be and competing at the highest levels, maybe becoming a champion, maybe you become an MVP. All of those steps are steps to becoming a better person as well, and you can't do one without the other. Lifestyle changes. You have to be able to compartmentalize time, change your life from shifting your view from maybe any previous dreams you may have had. Maybe when you were 6 years old, you wanted to be an astronaut. Maybe when you were 8 years old, you comedically said, I'll be the president of the United States, when they asked you what you wanted to be when you grew up. And now at 14, you're sitting there and you're watching people play Fortnite, win millions of dollars of playing a game that you have fun doing, and now that's your dream. Well, just like when you shifted from being an astronaut to being the president, you have to shift your goals and your lifestyle from president of the United States in the year 2028 to best player in the world in League of Legends 2 in the year 2030. right? Monetary investment, it's another thing. Especially for you younger folks, that means your parents' money. Maybe you're not able to earn enough, maybe with your part-time job at 16. You have to calculate what matters. Invest in things that help you become the best that you can be. Leave out the frilly stuff. Do what you have to do, not what you want to do. Understanding these things, those are things to think about. And once you come to the conclusions on all these things, once you come to the realization that you're ready to make these sacrifices, to make these investments, to change your life, to allot time to whatever esports you're playing, then the decision's made, right? Once that decision to compete has been made, then there's even more things to think about. I know it's like, well, am I in college? Like, why is it that I'm making all these decisions before I even start? Well, it's because the more you're ready for, the less that surprise you. The more you're ready for, like, yeah, some things are going to go differently than you expect, but this preparation will amount to more in the future, right? So, first thing I want you to do, when you've decided you want to compete, you're willing to make all those sacrifices and do all those things. What are your goals, right? We'll talk about that in the future slide as well, but what are your goals? Set them. Be prepared to achieve them. Scheduling time for team and individual practice. It's important to separate those two things. We'll talk about those things later as well. Learning to be part of a team. That's a big one. I'm talking to all of you, actually, because I've met, in all of my time competing, in all my time coaching, I've met maybe 9 teammates. Real teammates. I've met maybe 9 of them. 9. And I've met hundreds upon hundreds of players. 9 real teammates. And I'm not one of them. I was terrible at it. My ego was massive. My pride was inflamed. I was a horrible teammate. And that's part of the reason why I know what it means to be a horrible teammate, because I was one. Understanding what job fits you in your particular esport. Now, notice I didn't say role. I'll touch on this now because I didn't touch on this in the later slide, but I didn't say role. A lot of people feel like games are role-based. Well, they've kind of progressed from that. There used to be a time where roles mattered and you were set in your ways. And now, as gaming has progressed, most people have come to the conclusion that they can do it all. Right? And that's kind of a pride issue, but in some ways it's not. In some ways it's a video game issue. Video games have come to the point where everybody is included, right? Call of Duty has gotten a lot easier. Tactical shooters have gotten a lot easier. There's a lot more running and shooting. There's superpowers. There's a lot of those things have been included to allow everyone the opportunity to do something amazing, right? So I don't say role because I don't think there are very many roles left. I say job because you are a part of a team. You're a cog in a machine. Whether you have a role or not, you're a cog in a machine, and you have to understand how big your cog is, how fast it spins, to make that machine work. Now, this one's a difficult one to address for most people because it's the hardest thing to do on an individual level. Gauge your starting point. If you're a young kid and you want to come into this, right? I'm 25 years old. I've been doing this a long time. And sometimes it's hard for even me to gauge someone's, not necessarily their potential, because that's kind of gotten easier as time has gone on, but to gauge where they are right now. You blend those things together. As an individual, when you're looking inward, your pride blends your potential and your actual ability in the current time, right? So if you're younger and you want to get better, one of the most important things you can possibly do is be honest with yourself. Know how good you really are. And to be honest, that goes for a lot of people now. I can think of tons of people placing anywhere from T24, in tournaments formatted that way, or T32, however you want to put it, to T112, and they all have some form of potential. But what they lack is the ability to gauge where they are. And if you don't know where you're starting, well, then how could you ever know what path you need to take to improve? This particular bullet is a hard one to bite down on for a lot of people. So the sooner you are able to do it, the better. Before you even start competing, you should do it. And to some of you out there, that means right now, competing right now at this very moment. Look inside and really understand that you might not be as good as you have claimed to be. Maybe you're better. Maybe you have pride issues. Maybe you have no self-confidence. But really look inside and figure it out. Because one performance of going for 40 kills against one good team doesn't amount to much. Don't look back at scoreboards. Don't look inside and really feel it. Who are you, what are you, and where are you starting from so you know where you have to go to achieve your goals. And then fitting gaming into your schedule and not centering your schedule around gaming. Again, I'll touch on that at a later slide, but like I said, I used to be incredibly sick. I was a sickly person, both mentally and physically. I weighed a lot. I decided at 16 that I was going to become something in this esports world, and I centered my life around esports. And I almost died because of it. Center your life around your life and put gaming in it. So, first and foremost, what are your goals? Now, the slide is up for you to read on your own time, but I'm going to talk over it. So, for most of the following slides, just read at your own leisure, but try to listen at the same time. Goals are important in every aspect of life. For example, like I said, I just touched on the fact that I was sickly. I've touched on it twice now. I was overweight, very overweight. And I decided that I was going to turn my life around. So I set goals. My goal is eventually to reach 200 pounds. I'm 6'5" and a half. I'm a big person. I wanted to reach 200 pounds. In a year and some change, I went from 400 to 215 pounds. That's where I sit right now. My goal was to reach that. That is a goal. That is a set goal. A lot of people come into goals and they think, well, if I just say I want to be the best, then that's a goal. It's really not. And it's difficult to explain because a lot of people think, well, yeah, it is. I want to be the best. That's a goal. That's, being the best. But how do you know, right? Without a real landmark, how do you know what the best is? If I went to a bunch of people, let's say in Call of Duty, if I went to a bunch of people, I'll use CS as an example and then League of Legends as well, but if I went to a bunch of people in Call of Duty and I said, who's the best player in Call of Duty? A lot of people would give me a lot of different answers. Some people would say Shotzzy. He's an amazing player. I don't know if he's the best. Is he? Maybe. Some would say Simp. Again, what an incredible talent. Is he the best? How could I know? My answer would be aBeZy. Again, my answer is based on an opinion. It's based on an epistemological view of how I view the best, right? So if I'm viewing the best in that way, then somebody else is doing it in a different way. CSGO, same thing. Some would say ZywOo. Some would say Simple, right? League of Legends. There was a time when everyone said Faker. That's incredible. Can you set that goal for yourself? Who knows? Now there's a whole bunch of different answers, right? Knight is an answer that people could give. Some people could say, well, what about Tarzan? He's an amazing jungler. The Korean Tarzan. Right? Tarzan. What about Tarzan? He's an amazing jungler. Knight's an amazing mid laner. Right? Deft. Showmaker. They're all possible answers. And they're all based on what you think. So saying the best is not a goal. The truth of the matter is you need to make a clear and concise goal for a landmark for improvement, right? Because that's what goals are for. Although goals are ultimately meant to be achieved, their primary function is to give you an idea of where you want to go. If you know where you're starting, because before you even started all this, or maybe now, after watching this video, you're reflecting on what you want to be, right? And where you are right now. So you know where you are. You know where you're starting. And after you know where you're starting, you come to the decision that this is your goal. Let's say that goal is, I want to make it to the Call of Duty League. That's a landmark. Once you are in the Call of Duty League, you have achieved that goal, right? So that's a landmark. I am here, and I want to be there. Know your starting point, know your end point, and now you have a path to take. What's more important about setting goals is not only setting clear, concise goals that can be used as landmarks for progression, it's to make little, smaller goals. So if you look on the left side of the screen, you'll see, maybe your goal is to become a better teammate. And this is different from the idea of being the best. Because being a better teammate is a reflection of yourself, right? Being the best is not a reflection of you right now. If that was your goal, then how could you be the best right now, right? But to become a better teammate, and if you understand where you're starting from, then you have a gauge, right? Becoming a better teammate is a small goal, is the ultimate goal, but your little micro goal to do that could be that you're going to spend at least an hour a day for an allotted amount of time with one of your teammates who's struggling. You're going to help them watch VODs. Or maybe to become a better teammate, you practice some form of like verbal practice. Like maybe you watch some international debating or something like that, and you take notes and you learn how to speak with people. You learn how to make concessions and you learn how to make compromises, and that makes you a better teammate. And you can know where you start and therefore can ultimately achieve the goal of becoming a better teammate. Even if you're not the best teammate, you can achieve a goal of becoming a better teammate by taking small steps and understanding that that is a clear, concise goal, and the path you need to take to becoming a better teammate is right in front of you. So, touched on another thing that you need to work on, and that's scheduling time for yourself and your team. The amount of times, I reference Call of Duty more so than not because I came from a Call of Duty background. I was the coach and am functioning as the coach of the Call of Duty team for Built by Gamers. I've been with Call of Duty for a long time, right? So I reference that the most because it's the one that I have the most fans in that, or the most following. Shouldn't say fans, I probably have no fans, but I have the most following in that genre of esports, and therefore when I reference it, most people will understand, right? If you don't, I apologize, but I'll try to make references to other esports, and maybe you will. The amount of times that I've come across players who just don't wake up for scrims for their team. There's no team practicing happening because they just don't wake up. Or players' sleep schedules are so bad that they wake up, they're yawning, they're unable to focus. All of that matters. Then there's the players who wake up on time, they're scheduling practice for their team, but that's because they don't play out otherwise. They put forth and this is a big problem in Valorant currently. Your practice doesn't end when your team's practice does, right? Like you need to schedule time for your individual growth as well as your team growth. It's incredibly important to recognize the necessity of practicing away from your teammates. Because it's really hard to admit fault in front of other people, especially people who are your friends or your equals. It's really hard to demean yourself in front of them, right? It just is. It's human nature to want to stand up and be the big man on campus, right? To be the guy who doesn't make mistakes. So it's understandable that you would just be like, hey, it's hard, right? It's hard for me to do that. So make time to practice on your own. Make time to be the best version of yourself on your own. Set aside an hour to do something on your own. Maybe watch VODs on your own, maybe shoot bots, maybe practice a very specific weapon in deathmatch, maybe do some type of specific training, unbind, crouch, whatever. Do what you have to do to become an individual away from your teammates. Don't talk to them. Like, if they ask you, if they're texting the chat, respond, sure. But keep your practice of your individual self yours. Give yourself no excuse. You have to improve. Everyone does. The very best in the world have to improve so that they stay the best. Because there are all those people that are setting that I want to be the best goal, and they're hunting them down. There's no stopping in esports. It's continuous growth. There's always somebody new, young, fast, good. And they're coming for you. Individual practice is a necessity. Sleep is part of that individual practice schedule. Schedule your sleep. It may sound horrendous. I'm talking to people who are, in their 20s, late teens, even you early teen people right now, you prepubescents even, who are trying to play Fortnite. Maybe you're trying to get into Valorant. Set time for your sleep. Give yourself a bedtime. Get the sleep you need. Your brain and body are growing. They need the sleep. They need the rest. Do it. It's part of your practice. Eat well, sleep well, do it. With that being said, it's just as important to not disregard your team practice. You have plans, you want to go somewhere, you want to see a movie. That's cool. Everybody needs to live their life, and I'll get to that later as well. Because, again, like I said before, you don't want to center your life around gaming. But when it's time for team practice, it's time for team practice. Get on, be a teammate. Invest in time to improve as a unit. Because all the time you spend investing as an individual amounts to nothing if your team loses. Some of the best players in the world have spent years losing as a team while they're individually performing well. And is that their fault? Not necessarily. But could they have done more? Absolutely, because everyone always can. So, again, examples on the left of your screen here. Say you're a student, high school student. Right now you want to compete in Fortnite, Valorant, etc. You get up at 8 o'clock, you go to school, come home. Before you come home, do an extracurricular activity. Exercise. Participate in life. Maybe you want to join the basketball team. Maybe you want to be on the wrestling team. You want to practice, whatever seasonal sport. Do it. Maybe you want to be a mathlete, whatever the case may be. Do it. Maybe you don't get home until a little later. Maybe your team has to wait a little longer to practice. If they resent you for that, then that's unfortunate. But don't put it on the sideline. Right? Gaming is a part of your life. Gaming is not your life. And to be honest, all that extra practice on your mind and your body make you better at the game that you play. You come home, you do your homework. I never did my homework. Bad juju. Do your homework. Dinner. Team practice. When you're doing your team practice, invest all your effort into it. Maybe you're getting tired. Maybe the day was hard. That's unfortunate. But you have an obligation, a responsibility to your teammates to be the best teammate you can be. And in that moment, part of being the best teammate you can be is being the best individual you can be. So when that team practice is over, just because your teammates got off, or your teammates went to go see a movie, or maybe they're getting drunk watching a movie with the rest of the team, whatever the case may be. In this case, you're a high school student. Maybe those guys are getting off. Maybe they're calling their girlfriends. Maybe, whatever. Not you. That's another hour of individual practice right there, because you need to get your 8 hours in, but you don't need to be in bed until midnight. Maybe your team's done practicing at 11. Hit the bots. Go to the free-for-all. Hit the deathmatch. Watch a VOD. Do something. Become better as an individual. Become better as a team. It's important to schedule your life. Because gaming is an occupation. And before it even becomes an occupation, before you get paid for it, set a standard for yourself. So when you are getting paid, you're not afraid to schedule gaming just like it's a job. So, sacrifices. With all that being said about this being a job, it's really important to note sacrifices and to note what it takes to do this, right? Because it's one of the most, it's hard to generalize. It's hard to talk about from a coach's perspective because I don't know you, right? Maybe I've never met you. Maybe we've never spoken. Maybe you'll never watch this video. But it's important to understand that to each and every person, there's a sacrifice that has to be made. And that's why it's hard to generalize, because I don't know what that sacrifice is. But it's important to think about, right? Understanding that you have to sacrifice is just like understanding you have to sacrifice for anything else. Maybe if you wanted to be a basketball player, you didn't come home at 5:30. Maybe you stayed after at the gym. Maybe you put up 1,000 free throws. Maybe you were the next Kobe. That Mamba mentality that made him great is the same thing that goes with esports. You have to go further, right? You don't necessarily have to play for hours and hours and hours. You have to be willing to do the things that no one else will, right? One of those sacrifices, and one of the most incredible sacrifices that I've noticed a lot of competitive gamers have made, is really forgetting what it feels like to play video games. I personally have found it really difficult and have had it rough when it comes to playing video games recently, because I've competed for so long, been a part of competition in some way for 9 years. Other games just don't feel as good. Sometimes when you play a game that you know is a competitive game, you have to push the boundaries. You have to compete in it forever. I started in Call of Duty. I went to Counter-Strike, and I had to be the best in my friendship circle. I went to Valorant, and I had to be the best in my friendship circle. Everything became a competition because it was all about just how good I could be, right? And sometimes it doesn't apply to everyone. Sometimes people don't face that, but that's just one of the many sacrifices that I have seen people face and have to make to be able to do this. So if you're willing to understand it, at some point, gaming may just not be fun. Specifically, the game you're playing may go from being the most fun experience you have. The thing that makes you want to do it is that it's so fun to play with your friends and compete, and eventually that competition will just go away. Or the fun will go away so that the competition can live on. And it's unfortunate. With that being said, time with some of those friends is one of those things that you may have to sacrifice. Those friends who just casually play the game, well, you have team practice. And then after that, you have individual practice. And maybe they fit into that. Maybe you deathmatch with those friends, and you get to talk to them for an hour before you go to bed. That's part of the scheduling thing. But sometimes you're going to have to sacrifice time for them. Maybe you have a tournament that day. You don't have time to deathmatch with them. You don't have time to play with them, right? And it's going to stress relationships. It's going to stress time with friends that you don't even play video games with, that you just won't go out and see. It's important to recognize that that's a possibility, right? So hopefully it's something that you can handle. Your hand and eye health. All gamers face this, right? It doesn't matter how well you take care of yourself. You get gunners. You wash your hands in warm water. You work out the tendons. You do stretches. Eventually, it always comes back to bite you, right? No matter how much stress you put on, or no matter how much practice you put into making it better, the stress will always outweigh. Right? Basketball players, some of the greatest basketball players of all time, Derrick Rose, Dwayne Wade, these people have jello for knees. But it's because they worked their butts off to get to where they were. And it's just a part of the game, right? Unfortunate. Money, same thing. You're going to have to sacrifice a lot of it. In the initial stages, you're not going to have organizations paying for your travel fees. You're going to compete on land, become one of the best. You're going to have to pay for that. Whether it means you get a part-time job and you fit gaming into a schedule around that, or your parents are helping you out in the meantime, or whatever, what have you, you're going to have to sacrifice monetary investment to do this. It's something you have to be ready for. And something you're going to have to understand that you understood this beforehand. This is one of those things I was talking about. Money is one of the worst things that people regret. People regret spending all the money on gaming, spending all the money. Like, they'll always say, I don't regret meeting anybody, but I regret, wasting all my time and money on this. This is why you need to know beforehand, right? It's not all gloom and doom. That money amounts to things. Maybe after you're done gaming, you have a great PC, you go to college, you use it, it's awesome. Maybe you use that money to have a great PC, you game with your friends that are still competing. Maybe you don't compete anymore, but you have a great PC, it lasts you a long time, whatever, what have you. It is a monetary investment. It's not all gloom and doom, but you have to understand the gloom and doom, because that's what amounts to all these regrets, right? You have to accept it and then push past it. Time that can be spent on something else, like I said, screw the time with friends. What if you were a great basketball player, but this gaming took over your life? It was your new drive. You have to understand that, yeah, maybe if you kept it going and then you went to college, maybe you started at a lower level, maybe become a D1 athlete, you see the NBA, maybe gaming was just a part of your life. But there are some people out there who will ultimately sacrifice the opportunities that they had, whether it would be to be a great athlete, a musician in an amazing orchestra, maybe you were, first chair violin, and it was something that you sacrificed because gaming was your passion. One of those things. The most important one. The biggest sacrifice that everybody has to learn to make, that I never learned to make. And now I'm sitting here coaching. I have a clipboard in my hand. I'm staring into a camera. I'm talking over a virtual PowerPoint, and I'm hoping that people are listening. You have to sacrifice your pride. In every team esport, in every team game, sacrificing your pride is the most important thing. Yes, to some people, their pride makes them great. You have to be able to stand up and fight for what you believe in, to make a competitive environment, to make sure that your team progresses, but you have to be able to sacrifice your pride just as much as you stand by it, because improvement comes with accepting consequence for inactivity, for inaction, for failure, for mistakes, and most of all, making compromises with your teammates who maybe don't see it your way, or maybe you don't see it theirs. Swallowing your pride is the first step to being great at anything. Because when you're practicing as an individual, your pride is the only thing that matters. When you're practicing as a team, you have no pride left. You give up that pride to be a part of something greater than yourself. Sacrifice your pride. This isn't one of those gloom and doom things. This is a bullet point that everyone should bite. Sacrifice your pride and become great. With that being said, becoming great, what job fits you? Right? Making yourself valuable is important. Leaving like the whole, this is a professional, I'm trying to make everybody better PowerPoint attitude. I'm really asking you not only to swallow your pride, but to swallow that view of things. That view that like cooler is better. Because it isn't. There are some people who are just incredible. And I'm not of the mind that nobody can be great, or that not everybody can be great, because everybody can be great, but in their own way. If you watch Call of Duty, maybe you sit there and you watch Octane, and Octane has a 1 point, all last year, Octane has a 1.2, his team's losing, Octane's shooting straighter than anybody, he's amazing. That's awesome, right? But not everybody can shoot as straight as Octane. Octane is a generational talent. Not everybody can snap as hard as Tens does in Valorant. He's a talent. You can't snipe as well as Kenny S. He's a talent. Right? You not mechanically as gifted as Faker. You can't coach as well as Coma. I've had to face it. Right? It's something that happens. You have to find what makes you great. Ultimately, those 9 teammates I was talking about, those are role players that will eventually succeed as long as they embrace what they are and never give up. Because people need them. Being a teammate, being a role player, it's a balance. Those great people, Octane, Tens, Kenny S, Faker, those people need teammates because they can't win on their own. They've proven it before. No matter how great you are, it's ultimately impossible to beat the good teams by yourself. It just is. It's impossible. Maybe you have a breakout performance and you do most of the work, but someone always has to be there to pick up your slack because no one is perfect. Understand that there are things that make you valuable that can't be seen on a scoreboard. There are things that make you valuable that maybe your own teammates can't even recognize, but as long as you can look inside and know that those things are important, and at some point swallow that pride and understand that people won't see those things, but keep doing what you're doing, you will ultimately have value to anyone. And deciding what job fits you is important. There's another one of those things where you need to be honest with yourself. Are you a slaying monster? Are you a mechanical gift to Earth? If you are, that's the role you play. That's the job you take. But if you are someone who needs to work on their mechanics, who needs to shoot straighter, needs to get a little better, find what you can do and work on it and work on it and work on it. Accept your shortcomings. Work on those shortcomings, but above all else, bolster what makes you already great. Take that greatness and become excellent. Right? So, the basics. Once you've come to grip with the concepts that we've been talking about, you've ultimately started your journey on becoming a professional. And maybe some of you, like I said, need to look back on this video and understand that this is what the basics were. And maybe even now you still struggle with them, but it's something that you need to work on, right? So the videos in this series, to take it, out of this PowerPoint and into like the future, the videos in this series are going to be covering some of these concepts on a more in-depth scale. Other concepts that haven't been touched on here, maybe you comment on this video, tweet me, tell me what concepts you want to talk about, tell me what things you want to hear. This is all about diving into my mind, my philosophical and frankly outrageous approach to becoming the best esports player or coach that you can be. A lot of people disagree with me on a lot of my ideas, but this is a step inside of my mind. And if you're willing to take that journey with me, then this is just the beginning, right? Like this was a trip to the door. So depending on how this does, like I said, we're going to up the production value, going to get a better webcam, we're going to figure it all out. But ultimately, I want this series to help everyone. Even if we don't see eye to eye, maybe you don't like me, you don't like my approach to things, that's fine. Because this is all about making better gamers, and by extension, better people. And everyone, great. So, thanks for tuning in. I really appreciate it. You can maybe subscribe to my channel. Like the video if you did like it, dislike it if you didn't. Let me know. Hey, this thing's horrible. We'll try to figure it out, right? But most of all, share this video, and let's help get some newcomers started, and maybe some old heads back on track to where they should be. It's been your boy Ronan, here with BBG. I'm out. Peace.